Now here in Australia, the systematic destabilization of the Aborigines, 16 million of them. This was an act of inflicting systematic attacks and assaults upon individuals and places within human populations with the purpose of instilling fear and trauma and criminal occupation. What is the definition of that? Terrorism. We can go on and on. We're only talking about the last 200 years based upon the definition of Funk and Wagner, Webster's, and Oxford. Their own definitions, not Khalid's definition. We can go to the land of India, where many of you find your roots. We can go to the land of China, not far from us. And between India and China, more than 86 million people have been systematically destabilized, liquefied, murdered, replaced in the same way. Through the act of inflicting systematic attacks and assaults upon individuals and places within human populations with the purpose of instilling fear and trauma. And what is that definition? And the Caribbean, and the Pacific Islands, and the Inquisition of Spain and Portugal, the South Sea Islands, and the Far East by the British, by the Americans, the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, by the Spanish. In fact, this definition given by Oxford and Webster and Funk and Wagner, the authorities in the English language, this definition, this technique, which is defined as what? Terrorism. This has been the historical choice, the historical methodology, and the preferred way of destabilizing and occupying foreign nations for the last 200 years, and no one ever called it terrorism. The United Nations, that was before called the League of Nations. Did you know that? They never defined any of these actions, any of these barbaric, tragic intrusions, criminal occupations, destabilizations, murder, and protracted crimes on humanity. They never called it what? Terrorism. Now let's go to the issue of, before we go to the issue of the suicide bombers and the freedom fighters who are called fanatics and extremists, let's first add up this, what has happened in the last 200 years. Did anybody keep count with me? Excuse me. How many? 487 million. That's 500 million people. I didn't say in jail. I didn't say oppressed. I said totally destabilized, eliminated, slaughtered, liquefied, or otherwise eradicated over a period of 200 years. Now that crime will be paid for because Allah is just. And that crime is being paid for. That crime is being paid for. In the Western world, which we are living, which has the highest standard of living, which is the most advanced, which has the highest level of education, which has the highest buildings, the most institutions, the most enjoyment, the most developed technology, the most preferred way of life, the most beautiful houses, the most diversified marketplaces, the Western world, the pearl of the earth where everybody is being called to. The Western world. Let me give you some statistics to show you how they are paying for it. The Western world that we're living in, every single hour, 106 children are aborted. That means they are murdered. 106 children are aborted every single hour, which means every 2 hours, every 3 hours, some 350 children are killed in the womb in the Western world. Every hour, 106. Every 24 hours, nearly 3,000. Every week, 21,000. Every month, 85,000. Every year, 1.3 million children are killed in the womb. Little people who are 14 weeks, 18 weeks, 30 weeks, they are even killing them when they are at 40 weeks. Can you imagine that? In the Western world, that's how they're paying for it. Secondly, every 7 seconds in the Western world, a woman is raped. So while we sit here, every 7 seconds, that means 10 every hour. That means 240, 300 women are raped every day in the Western world. And the Western world, at any given time, has 2.8 million prostitutes walking their streets. Whether in Holland, or in New York, or in Washington, D.C., or in France, or all the other red light districts. 2.8 million women who prefer to be prostitutes, even though they had the choice, if they like, to be mothers or wives. But they choose to be prostitutes because there are more than 10 million men who prefer them also to be prostitutes because that's their clients. They're also paying for it because every single day in the Western world, 350 young children are snatched off of the streets and put into some kind of place where they'll be used for child prostitution. Every day, 350 children disappear and used for child pedophiles, child prostitution. This is the Western world, the most developed world. Did you know that every single day, 357 people shoot themselves in the head, take some pills, slit their wrists? Every single day, they have no reason to live. In the developed Western world, I can give you more and more and more statistics, but I think you understand that Allah is just, and the justice means they have to pay. And so Allah is making them pay. But He has given them an alternative. He has put Muslims in their midst. He has given them Islam as a choice.